everyone, I'm Alison with Better Half Reviews, and today we're going to be talking about Ludos Asia from Lemery Games on crowdfunding. These are prototype copies, so some things are subject to change, but let's talk about it. A while back, Lemery Games brought Bagh Chal to Kickstarter, where you could pay what you want to get this game. It's an ancient game from Nepal, and that went out so well that they decided to do a series, and so this is going to be Ludos Asia, 4 games from 4 different countries in the Asia region. I'll give you a quick rundown on the rules of each of these games and then circle back in to talk about it. Hasami Shogi, often called scissor chess, is a variant of the Japanese game shogi. The name comes from the way players capture enemies between 2 of their own pieces. The origins and rules of Hasami Shogi are widely contested among historians, board game researchers, and modern players. As a result, the game has many variants. For the Ludos collection, the variant of Marosi is chosen. So you'll set up on each side of the board with the blue section in the middle, and the 2 players will have 18 samurai pieces each. The object of the game is to form a row of 5 of your own samurais within the battlefield. So the sections of the boards where the samurai reside, this is their house, and then this blue section is the battlefield. The player controlling the red samurais will go first. So there are 2 things you can do in this game. You can move or you can capture. So on a player's turn, you can move one of your pieces horizontally or vertically any number of spaces. So I can move all the way down here. I can move all the way up here. I could go all the way up here. What you can't do is I can't move on to another occupied space. Another type of movement you can do is jump. And you can jump one of your pieces horizontally or vertically over any one adjacent piece. So if I wanted to, I could jump to this side. When you jump, you can't jump further over, you just jump over to the next adjacent space. Jumping over a piece does not count as capturing. We'll talk about capturing in just a second. Once a piece is moved out of a player's house, it may not return to the house. And you also are not allowed to enter into the other player's house. So now let's talk about capturing. If a player traps any number of enemy pieces within a horizontal or vertically straight line between 2 of their own pieces with no gaps, they may capture those pieces. So if I took my turn, this piece is trapped vertically between 2 of my other pieces with no gaps in between, it is captured. Capture is only possible by the active player on their turn. If the active player moves their own piece into any one of those kinds of traps, it is not considered captured. It is also possible to capture more than one piece at a time, as long as it's still in a horizontal or vertical row with no gaps between where your pieces are, so you can capture multiple pieces on your turn. There are 2 ways that the game can end. The main objective is to try to get 5 of your own pieces in a row, whether horizontally, vertically, or even diagonal row in the battlefield without any gaps. So this would be considered a win. This would not, because there's gaps, and you could even go for a diagonal line. So you could win that way. The second way that the game can end is if a player captures 14 enemy pieces, leaving the other with fewer than 5 pieces. And that is Hasami Shogi. Here we have Jarmo from Mongolia. It's a battle game with roots tracing back to the Turkish people of the 8th century Mongol Empire. It is also called Yasur, which means archer in the Turkish language. In the game, 2 players assume the roles of opposing armies, whose archers are trying to infiltrate the enemy camp. According to legend, the fierce Mongol ruler Batu Khan carried the game with him as a way of training his generals, preparing himself for battle, and even received premonitions about the future. So each player commands a unit of 5 soldiers, and your object of the game is to earn the most points by evading capture and infiltrating the enemy camp. Each team will get 5 soldier pieces, and you'll place them archer side up. In the row where they start, the little decoration, this is now their camp. And now that you're set up, the green player will start first. There's a few different actions that you are able to do in the game. One of the main actions is moving. The player can move one of their pieces to a space connected by a solid line. So right here, this is connected here, I can move all the way up here. And you're not allowed to move onto a space where you already are. So if it were my turn again, See, this piece has this line here. I could not move my piece here because I've already got a piece there. Another action is capturing. So if my piece moves on to an enemy piece, they are removed from the game. And if you remove an enemy from the game by using an archer, that archer is promoted to guard, and you flip it over. If, however, you use a guard and capture an enemy, nothing else happens, it just remains a guard. Another thing you may do is entering an enemy camp. So if I enter the enemy camp, that piece may not be moved, but it still may be captured. If that piece is a guard, the player who owns it must flip that guard back to the archer side. Then they may recover one of their captured pieces, if there are any. So if I had lost one of my pieces, and I moved over, I flip it back to the archer, and I'd get my piece back. So when you do get a piece back and you're going to redeploy it, you will pick one of the spaces on your camps, and it'll be archer side up. If there are no available spaces, or maybe it would be a bad setup where if you placed it here, you could end up getting captured again, you can choose not to place it and wait for a better time to play it on your turn. There are 3 ways to win the game. If a player has moved all their pieces on the board into the enemy camp, the game ends and players tally their points. You score 2 points for each of your own pieces in the enemy camp, and score 1 point for each other piece you have on the board. The second way to win is if you capture all your enemy's pieces, and then you will score points just as we just mentioned. And since the other player had all their pieces taken, they would score 0 points. And then the third condition for ending the game is if both players make the same back and forth moves 2 consecutive times, the game ends, and then you tally your scores based on everyone's current positions. So with keeping track of score, you can play a series of either 2, 4, or 6 games, thus rotating which sides you're going to be starting with the different camps. Or if you're playing a single game, you just simply count up the score and see who has the most points to win. And that is Jarmo. Ute is a horse racing game from Korea with roots going back almost 2,000 years. In centuries past, it was primarily used for gambling, but today many Korean families gather to play Ute as a fun activity during the Chinese New Year. In this game, you can have 2 to 4 players controlling teams of horses trying to win the race. I'll show you a 2-player setup. Each player chooses a color of horses, and you will get 4 of each, and you'll stack them just to the left of the starting space. And the starting space is the winning post. Players will take turns casting sticks and moving their horses around the track, sometimes capturing others' horses or merging their own horses together. When you're playing, you're going to be casting sticks. There is a flat mark side that will count for movement, and then a rounded blank side. The way that you count up movement is if you have just one of them facing up, your movement is 1. 2 sides up, 2. 3 sides up, 3. 4 sides up, 4. Or if you get all of them flat side down, your movement is 5. If a player throws a 4 or a 5, they may throw one more time before moving. So if you were to roll a 4 or a 5, you would throw again. So say that I rolled a 5. I'll throw one more time. And I got a 1. Your movement will be the sum of your 2 throws. So it's my turn. I will throw. So my result is 3. Your choice is to either add a new horse to the track or move a horse. If it's your first horse, you're going to place it to the left of the winning post and go the exact number, so 1, 2, 3. If, for example, I already had some horses on, then you would choose to move exactly 1 horse. The exact number, 1, 2, 3. So remember, if you throw a 4 or a 5, you are entitled to a second throw. So we'll do the second throw. I got a 1. You add up the 2 sums, so that'd be 5 plus the 1 is 6. You can move 1 horse, 6 movement, or you may separate the moves into the exact die rolls of 5 and 1. If you'll notice on the board, there's a few different spots that are marked. These are called shortcuts. And if you begin your movement from a shortcut, you can move through the board instead of going completely around the track. So I'm beginning my movement from a shortcut. I can, instead of just keep going around, I can move up. Let's say I threw a 1. I can move one of my horses, or you can also choose to move in stacks. I can move this on top of here, and now this is a stack of 2 horses, and it's considered 1, and it will move as 1. So if I were to roll a 4 later on, I can move both of these and go 1, 2, 3, 4. So stacking is a way to get more of your horses moving at once, but it is also a bit of a gamble, because you could be captured, and if you are captured, more of your horses will be going away. So if I threw, I can move 2, and so I can move like this, or I could take my horses and move 1, 2, and I landed on top of my opponent's horse. When you do that, this horse is considered caught, and they are removed from the board and go back into the starting position. The active player, after you catch, is rewarded with 1 more throw, so you may move again. Once a horse moves past the winning post, they are placed into the stable. And once a player gets their last horse placed into the stable, they are considered the winner of the game. In a 3-player game, all players will have just 3 horses, and the rules are the same. And that is Yoot. Here we have Bagh Chal, which is a game from Nepal. We're going to be having the goats versus the tigers. The tigers will start in the corners of the board. And the goats will be placed on. And what the goats are trying to do is surround the tigers, and the tigers are trying to jump over and take the goats. The game is played in 2 phases. In phase 1, after the tigers are placed, the goat player can place a goat anywhere on an available space, so anywhere on a cross-section. And then after a goat is placed, then a tiger may move. They can either walk, so move in a straight line, or they could, if they are next to a goat, jump and then remove the goat. So in this case, maybe they would move here. The goat player would place again, try to block the tiger, and then tigers can move. You continue this with phase 1 until after all the goats have been placed. Phase 2 begins once all the goats have been placed. Some of them may have been removed by being jumped over by tigers. And then you continue on where each player will take a turn doing the different movements. So the goats may now walk, just like the tigers can, and the tigers still have the same action of walking or jumping. So the way that the tigers win is if they are able to jump 5 goats. So right now they already have jumped 3, so they just need to get 2 more. And for the goat player to win, they would need to trap all 4 tigers at the same time. So trapping a tiger would look something where, like this, where the tiger has no valid moves. They are stuck. So that would be considered trapped, but you would need to trap all 4 at the same time in order for them to win the game. Something to note, tigers and goats cannot walk back and forth between the same 2 spaces during consecutive turns. So, for example, like the tiger couldn't move here, move back, and do that again consecutively, unless there are no other options. Another way that the game ends, either when tigers collect 5 goats or all 4 tigers are trapped by the goats, if players perform the same moves 3 times in a row, aka they're just chasing each other and not really doing anything. If you do the same thing 3 times in a row, the game is a draw. And that is Bagh Chal. Alright, so that's a rundown of the rules of each of the games, and so now let's talk about them. Something that I like about these is the cultural aspect to it, where even though these aren't games that I would be like, oh yeah, have you played this game? I enjoy having these in my collection because it's like, oh hey, let's play Hasami Shogi, and we can talk about a little bit about the history, and it's really cool, you know, bringing some of that history to our table and being like, this is a game that people played many, many, many years ago, and I love that Lemery Games brings awareness to different countries by bringing back some of their ancient games before they're forgotten. I like that all of these games have fairly simple rules, and it's very quick to get them to the table and easy to play. So we covered Bagh Chal a while ago, but I like having the different options because it's like, oh hey, you want to play a quick war game? Let's play Hasami Shogi or Jarmo. Like, oh, you want a racing game? Let's play Ute. Something else that I like is just their travel size. They're so small. Like, you have the nice little bag that you could use to carry them in. Or for me, I do like boxes, and it keeps things a little bit more protected. I love how compact and portable they are. And for backing the game, they do have the pay what you will. So if you want to just get one of these games, you can pay what price you can or whatever you feel like paying and just get one with the little baggie. Or if you get all four, you get the collector's box for free. And I know these are prototype, but I want to talk about the collector's box for a second. When we got this in the mail, I was like, holy moly, this is beautiful. So the collector's box, it, like, I don't know if you can tell, like, shiny, has a cool feel to it, and it's very thick and sturdy. Because, and it's like, how is this going to work? So the games, I'll put it the right way. They fit in this way, and then they have the little arrows for each of the different sections. So it's like, okay, I've got Hasami Shogi. Here's the Hasami Shogi spot. You're just going to match it in and put it in. And they have a little tab so that it's easy for you to pull out when you want to play it. And since it's nice and thick and sturdy, even in the prototype form, it stays in. So it's snug enough to keep it in, but not too snug that you can't get the stuff out. And I love this box. It does have this little part that's sticking out on top that's cut out from behind. So it's not totally just like flat, but honestly, I really like it. It's very display worthy. So it's like, if you're going to get a couple of the games or 3 of them, it's like you might as well get all 4 because I love this box. But anyway, back to the games. So out of all the games that I would say are like my top favorites, I would say Hasami Shogi. When I was reading the rules for this, I was like, this sounds really familiar. And I've played a game similar to this, and I'm wondering if they got the inspiration because of a variant of this game. And so I've played Valknut by Lemery Games, which is a similar thing where you're trying to move around and trap your opponents between yourself or the edge of the board and yourself. I'm like, oh, hey, that's probably what this game was based on. So it was kind of familiar, and I liked having a different version of it. And I really like Ute with the racing aspect because you're going around and it's like, oh, okay, do you want to go for a shortcut? Do you want to try to stack some of your horses? Or it's like, oh, you could stack horses to get further in the game, but if someone captures your horses and it captures a stack, oh, you have to start back over. And it's kind of cool, like, to throw the sticks, where I don't have very many games that have stuff like this. I mean, I know it's just, you know, like basic dice, but it's kind of fun. You're like, oh, okay, I threw sticks. So I would say that these 2 are probably my favorite of the 4. Favorites, I should say. And while these games do have some different strategy and some nuance to them, the rules are fairly simple enough that your kids could play them too. And probably the racing game would be the most fun for them. And maybe Hasami Shogi might be the hardest because you're trying to map out where to go. But yeah, I would say like Ute is definitely a go-to for family. Something else that I really appreciate with Lemery Games with doing this series, and they'll do more series for different countries and regions, I like that they also donate games to those areas to bring those games back into circulation in those regions. So I just really appreciate Lemery Games as a company for what they're doing with bringing the games to our awareness and also giving back to those countries. I think it's super cool. All right, so that is Ludos Asia from Lemery Games. Very fun and just simple, light games, but I love the aspect of bringing some different culture to the table by bringing back some ancient games. So if you are interested in backing this for the 1 game, pay what you want, or get all 4 with the collector's box for free, I'll put the link in the description down below where you can follow or back the campaign. But I'd say definitely look into this one if you want some light strategy games and maybe just a little bit of different ancient culture brought back to your table. All right, I'm Alison with Better Half Reviews. Happy gaming! I don't know what I'm saying. And I will bing, bing, bing.